It's startup time when we return.
Welcome to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to college prospect evaluation with a fantasy football focus. With your hosts, John Arrington, Aaron Wilcox, and Andy Starr. This podcast brings you actionable strategies and player-driven analysis for your Devy, C2C, and Dynasty leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into Devy. Welcome to the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, John Arrington. Andy literally just made it. Saved by the bell. Yeah, we were waiting. We were hoping he was going to make it in, but you guys probably didn't even realize he was gone. That was great timing. I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, we're here tonight to talk about a C2C startup or a C2C startup ADP. We're going to be covering that. There's a lot to talk about. In fact, there's a lot of data here, a lot of information here, and we might not even cover it all tonight. We might have to turn this into a couple pods or something like that because there's a lot to dive into and get into. Obviously, we haven't done that much Devy talk. We definitely have not done that much C2C talk this year. We've been focused on the rookies. We've been focused on the combine and Senior Bowl and everything else. So it's fun every once in a while. Dive right back in, especially getting into spring camps and things. We'll definitely have more Devy and C2C news and notes for you coming up and all that kind of good stuff. But like I said, that's what we're going to be covering tonight. A C2C startup or mock draft, I guess it would be, and the ADP that goes along with it. First, let's check in with the boys. Andy, you made it. You barely made it, but you did make it.
Yeah, first I have to apologize to you guys because we wanted to be here like a half hour ago, and I get on here and it says that thing that my camera's being used by another app, and then of course once I do the restart, it loads up 50 different updates, which takes it's like the Office. If you've ever seen Office Space, when he's like trying to download this spyware, and it's just like 50 bars going over. He's like, "Come on!" That was me 10 minutes ago, but we're here. I made it. Sorry I'm late, but glad to be here.
All good. We will be efficient tonight, I am sure, Andy. And I'll beat you to it,
As we
John.
always are.
Yeah, and I'll beat you to it, John. I am doing well. Thank you for not even needing to ask, but just me reading your mind.
As our good friend Felix Sharp loves when we ask, "How are you doing?" In fact, you know what? Felix is back, and I wanted to say, I'm so happy because we actually desperately need Felix in this space. The Devy and C2C space is better with Felix Sharp in it. He's been back for a couple of pods now, and I enjoy it when he's on. It's more fun. It's just it's a breath of fresh air. That being said, God, are some of his takes just god awful? But man, I love the guy, and he really is a breath of fresh air in the space. Yeah, so yeah, let's get into the startups. I honestly I thought about doing like a guess the guy, or actually I had another game for us, like a true truths and a lie kind of idea, and I was coming up with that, but I just don't think we're gonna have enough time tonight. So we'll get into all of that when we have more time, and we can just do whatever we want. As baby Wilcox gets a little older and maybe his sleep schedule changes, we'll have more time to do all that kind of stuff. But let's go ahead and dive into the startup ADP because, like I said, there's a lot to get to here. uh, the weird thing is like well, I guess it's not weird. The funny thing is, Jeremiah Smith, obviously the 101, clear cut 101. I don't know that we've had this clear cut of a 101 in years, because his ADP is 1.0, and then the next player that we have, their ADP is 4.4. So it just goes to show we have a very clear cut 1.0, and then really it could be like anyone's guess almost at that point. But any questions, any qualms with Jeremiah Smith at 101 overall for you guys?
No, dude is a stud. He deserves to be there. There is a lot of ambiguity, question marks, whatever you want to say, for the at least elite players after him. Like, there's a lot of good players. We'll get through them. Some of the guys who maybe went too high or too low, but yeah, I mean, Jeremiah Smith is the safest prospect out there for projection to the NFL for fantasy purposes. He is 1 year away, so you get for one awesome season of campus production, and then you get him onto your NFL squad. That's a really awesome way because we've seen guys, freshmen who get really hyped up to like that, maybe 1, 2, 3 rank overall, and then they disappoint, like the DJ or you see the Ryan Williams and whatnot, and they're guys coming off of freshman seasons. Unfortunately, there's multiple seasons and opportunities for them to kind of stumble and take a step back. Think of the Keishawn Butte back in the day. So a guy who's 1 year away like Jeremiah Smith, that's also, I think, a pretty positive thing.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot of youth here in the first few rounds. So it's nice to see someone who's already proven it, who's already done it. Andy, it looked like you were getting ready to talk, and then I cut you off.
No, I was just gonna agree. Like, it's good that they have Jeremiah Smith, and that's the other thing. Like, it is a lot of youth at the top. Everyone kept saying, "Oh, move your 26 for the 27 picks," but I'm looking at this ADP, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of confidence in the Devy community in the 27 picks right now, which I kind of can understand personally as well. Like, this receiving class that we had really high hopes for, and rightfully so, after the freshman season in 2024, kind of took a step back aside from Jeremiah Smith. And now we're kind of having to reconcile that with this ADP. A lot of it is projection, a lot of projection in the quarterback position, especially with the younger guys. I do think that there's a lot of value to be had in the 27 class right now, looking at this ADP, but we'll obviously get to that throughout this episode.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to attack this, but the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm thinking about it. I think we should probably break it down by position a little bit, at least in the first round. Um, I'm I'm looking at it here, and the QBs are kind of confusing for me here because I mean, obviously everyone falls in love with youth, everyone falls in love with the shiny new toy and all that kind of stuff, but Bryce Underwood going at QB1 and really the third player being chosen on a regular basis here is pretty confusing to me. I don't really understand it, especially like we're talking about C2C here. We're talking about scoring points. We're talking about going to the NFL and scoring points there. Then that's followed by Arch Manning. That one makes sense to me. Keelan Russell, JKS, and then getting into QB5, Keyshawn Henderson out of Houston. There's a lot of question marks there for me with the QBs. Now, Keyshawn Henderson is in the second round, so I mean maybe that one's not fair to like loop in here or tie in here, but I was just getting into the top five. It just seems like we're looking at a lot of youth, a lot of unproven players, and we've seen these QBs are the ones that really hurt you the most. Why are we still drafting them all this high?
Yeah, I have issues with multiple of those quarterbacks being so high. I mean, I don't have any qualms with Arch Manning. He should, in my estimation, be at the quarterback one spot. It has some nice floor to him, but also the upside, right? Some rushing upside. Definitely a fun player, all in all. Who's, you know, I guess faltered last year. Like, not the perfect year by any means, but Arch Manning is set up for just continued success and continued development. So I think he'll have an awesome season. He should be at the QB1 spot. But after that, it's just a bunch of young guys who are unproven. I mean, Keishan Henderson, completely unproven. We haven't seen him yet in college, and he's undersized, and he's probably going to be the backup in his first year. It's tough. You're gonna have to wait a few years probably to see much return on him. I get the JKS thing. I have him pretty high as well. But like even Keelan Russell, we haven't seen him yet. At least we've seen JKS at Cal perform. He's done some things on the field. At least we've seen Bryce Underwood play some college football. Didn't look amazing, but at the same time, not a complete train wreck either. You could tell he was a freshman, and he's going to be getting a new coaching staff, and I think that's the reason why everybody's so excited is because Michigan is kind of bringing in a new system, a guy who's used some dual threat quarterbacks in the past, so they expect like better upside from the quarterback position at Michigan than what they've had in the recent past.
Andy, do you think that with these QBs being or pushing down some of these like 2027 wide receivers you were talking about, do you think that's just like they're trying to hit and they're like, hey, I can get one of these top end wide receivers a little bit later, like in the second or third round, that kind of thing? Do you think that's why people are trying to go like the riskier pick of the QB here? Because, like I said, I'm especially the Bryce Underwood one, the Keyshawn Henderson one. I mean, even the Keelan Russell one is just like there's just too much up in the air for me to be throwing a pick this early at those players.
Uh, I think that that's definitely a part of it, because especially with Keelan Russell, for example, we haven't seen him. If he goes out there and he wins the job, which I guess is still up in the air, Austin Mack is still getting talked about as a potential starter at Alabama, but everyone seems to think that it's probably going to be Russell. If he goes out there and does anything moderately effective, his value's insulated. He'll be good to go for the next season as well as far as his ADP. So you need to take that shot now if you can. Um, with a guy like Bryce Underwood, who's already shown us one kind of like below average season, you're really gambling on him having a breakout year at the third overall pick. Like he's gotta not be average this year, and that's a tough ask for a guy who's going to be playing with a new coach. It's a team that likes to run the ball more. They did bring in JJ Buchanan, which I think will be helpful in the passing game, especially for a young quarterback like Underwood. And then Andrew Marsh is continuing to develop too. So I do think that they can have a passing game there. Whether or not Michigan chooses to do so is another question entirely. But he had 11 touchdown passes in 13 games last year. Like that's gotta double at least, for you to even feel somewhat good about taking him at the second or third pick in a C2C startup draft. Um, Going down the list, JKS, I think I'm fine with him there as well. He had a solid enough freshman season. You expect a little bit of growth. Um, the one that also confuses me a little bit is Sam Levitt. He is going to LSU. His ADP is a little bit lower, but he's still in that same tier as the guys we've been mentioning here. Um, Shortened season last year, but wasn't great. Yards per attempt under 7. Um, he, for second year in a row, I believe. I don't think he's. Let me pull up his stats here. So, his sophomore year at 8 yards per attempt, so he's a little bit better. But the big time throw rate improved last year. A dot still not quite where I'd like to see it, but certainly not a guy that I'm feeling super confident in as being an NFL quarterback. The only guy that I could say in this tier that besides JKS that I'm comfortable drafting is probably Julian Sayin, who has had a 30 plus touchdown season at Ohio State. You think he's probably gonna improve a little bit next year. He's got the 101 that he's throwing it to Jeremiah Smith. He's got the hot freshman receiver Chris Henry Jr. He's gonna be throwing it to him too, and I think that that's probably the safest pick out of this group here. And then we can move further down the list. I think there's other guys that I would rather have over some of these people as well.
Yeah, I think the QBs are a little weird. Now this is a C2C, a campus to canton.com mock draft or multiple mock drafts that they put together to get this ADP. I know they have gone out of their way to say that Bryce Underwood is by far the best graded recruit they've ever graded and things like that. Do you think that there's something to that, and that's why he's being drafted at QB1 here, third overall, or at least, I mean, 4.8 for the ADP, but like technically third player overall? Do you think there has something to do with that, or I mean, am I missing something? Because I'm with Andy. Like, if anything, it was an underwhelming freshman year, and not much has changed. I mean, well, actually, I mean, a lot has changed. We have coaching changes and things like that. So we can't even say there's, continuity or anything like that. Like, there's a lot up in the air, as well as an underwhelming freshman year.
Yeah, he is a better prospect than DJ Lagway, but Bryce Underwood's certainly not a perfect player with his freshman play. That's far from it, right? So, yeah, I agree with you. A little bit overdrafted there. There's just so much ambiguity. Like, you want to shoot for upside, so I get it, but at the QB1 in ADP, I mean, I'd be more comfortable with him in that second round range. Like Andy said, you can get kind of a discount on a Julian Sand, more in that late second in startups. You can get JKS late first. Just go with Arch Manning, I guess, if you're like contemplating getting that QB1 off the board.
Yeah, I mean, Arch is looking like a steal, if there could be a steal in like the first six picks of a first round, but he's kind of looking like one there. Getting into the receivers, because that's basically where we're at next after Jeremiah Smith. We have a surprise at second overall, or 4.4 for the ADP. At least a surprise for me. I know it's probably not a surprise for most people. He looked amazing in the college football playoffs, and I mean, it was exciting to watch. He has a lot of fun plays, a lot of fun highlights. He's kind of a one trick pony right now, and by kinda I mean he's a one trick pony right now. So I need to see a lot more growth from him, but he's also second year player. Malachi Tony is the 4.4 ADP and the second player overall in this ADP. And that's a little wild to me. I know he put up, 1,000 yards or right around there as a true freshman. That's fantastic. But we also have a change in quarterback. We don't know, is the connection going to be there, or is not only is the connection going to be there, is Darian Vincent just going to be dinking and dunking it the entire time, like we saw with Carson Beck? I don't think he's going to be dinking it as much. Not to say he won't at all, but he definitely pushed the ball down the field more than Carson Beck does. So Malachi Tony. We have Cam Coleman coming in at 5.0 even for ADP, and Decorian Moore out of Oregon, and then Nick Marsh and Chris Henry Jr. Are round up the top five. Actually, I guess that's top six. I wasn't even thinking about Jeremiah Smith, but the top six for wide receivers there. Um, I have issues with Tony and Decorian Moore, with the injury. Not the biggest Dante Moore fan, and or even Oregon fan for that matter, all that much. So I have kind of issues with that. No one else really bothers me on the list. I mean, I only named six players, but they're not bothering me too much there.
Yeah, Malachi Tony obviously is a little bit, it's a lot of it overdrafted. And I know what John's main concern is, and it would be my main concern as well, would be the ADOT. Like he's a slot underneath receiver. He only had three games, I think, where his ADOT was over 9 yards. And then if you look at his game logs, it's a lot of, 10 targets where they were 2 yards down the field on average. So is that going to continue? If he has 1,200 yards doing that again, I don't think anything will change for me, but people will be excited about it. But he needs to do something like what we saw with Casey Concepcion, where he's a low ADOT player, and then he develops that long pass receiving game as well, which he could do, because I think Darian Mensah is a better quarterback for that than Carson Beck was. But he does bring, Mensah brings with him his receiver from Duke, Cooper Barkate, who is that downfield guy, and he's going to have that comfortability with him. So that's going to kind of hinder that process for Tony as well. The other guys, I don't mind Decorian Moore. He did kind of fall off a little bit towards the end of the year. I was a little bit more excited him in the middle of the season. And then he kind of, the last 3 games of the season and then into the playoffs, really nothing was going on there. But, the market share
he
is
got
fine.
hurt. He missed the last few weeks. That was
Right. I think he played the first playoff game, and that was that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't even know why they brought him back. I heard it was some. I mean, I don't even know exactly what the injury was. Originally, I thought like ACL, and then obviously if he came back for that first playoff game, so it obviously was not an ACL tear. So
Yeah.
it was something major. But it was like, why'd you even bring him back for that first game? I don't get it.
Yeah. It looks like he played Texas Tech and Indiana, so he played in two of the games. But again, nothing really happened there. Um,
Yeah.
but like the yards per route run were fine. The market share was good for a true freshman. So Oregon's moving on from a lot of their receiving I should say, like people that they're moving on from Sadiq obviously and Malik Benson. So there's going to be opportunity for more yardage in that offense. So I don't really hate that. Bryant Wesco, I really like, but I'm worried about his neck injury. He's in that tier. And aside from that, I mean, Cam Coleman is what Cam Coleman is. Like I'm never gonna draft him there. But I think I did in one of these mocks actually, just because there's nobody else that was really sticking out to me at like the 106 or 7 in a draft. So I took Cam Coleman. But it's not something that I would be very comfortable doing, just based on, I know he's got the market share, the volume that we like, but the yards per route run aren't what I like, and I know John doesn't like that, but I think Nick Marsh is fine. He's in a great situation. He's gonna have a little bit of a bounce back year. Um, I'm going looking down at the tier underneath these guys, and I'm seeing like Andrew Marsh, even Latsier Brooks. I know, I think he had a good strong end of the season, so I do kind of don't mind him there. I know he's got some things to develop too. Um, and then Vernell Brown is a solid slot receiver as well, but I, I'm still excited about a lot of these receivers. I know people are kind of down on them after last year. I think that there's they didn't have as strong of a showing as they did initially, but still a lot to be excited about for a lot of these guys. So I think if you're thinking, oh, I'll take a shot at one of the QBs because I can get one of these wide receivers in the second round, just why not just take two of the wide receivers and then go get Darian Mensah in like the fourth or fifth round or wherever he's going, if you're looking for QB help, because there's if you're looking for talent in this Devy and C2C draft startup season, it's wide receiver, and it starts high and it stays high for several rounds. So, yeah, I mean I can nitpick on things for all of these guys, but I really can't say that anybody's wrong for drafting them there.
Yeah, the wide receiver position is deep. I do get that takeaway as well. Looking at this ADP, I will say, I guess here's the Malachi Tony thing. For a C2C or a CFF draft, he's going to be up super high. For Devy draft, should be a little bit lower. And I understand in C2C leagues, ideally you should be drafting in these early rounds with more of that Devy focus. Try to load up your NFL potential. In later rounds, then you can get your CFF starters and all that. But that's just not how these mocks necessarily work and ADP goes. But either way, Malachi Tony, a little bit high there, yes. But he reminds me a lot of Casey Concepcion, where that freshman season, just easy touches underneath, short A dots type of roles, short to intermediate roles, I should say. But then he can develop a little bit more of that long game, especially if a Darian Mensah comes in there. And we all like Darian Mensah. We didn't even mention him in the ADP for the quarterbacks because he was kind of buried in it, which is to me insane. Mensah is going to elevate the game, the passing game there at Miami, and I have no doubt that Malachi Tony can benefit from that quarterback upgrade, and he can develop his game a little bit. I still have some concerns about the ultimate upside. Like, he's got a limited frame. He's kind of a small receiver. So is Malachi Tony just like a juiced up Zachariah Branch? I guess that's the question, right? But other wide receivers listed there, I have no problem with like Cam Coleman being pretty high. I know DeCorian Moore is maybe not proven yet, but he was a five-star guy. He flashed enough in his freshman season. And then you go down the list like Nick Marsh, I get it, going to Indiana, promising prospect and talent going to a perfect system that needs somebody to step up for the loss of Elijah Surratt, for the loss of Omar Cooper Jr. Nick Marsh should step up into a very key role there. And then I actually start to dislike some of those guys, like the Chris Henry Jr., the Bryant Wesco, the Tristan Keys or TK Keys going that high. I don't dislike them as players necessarily, but I think that, that's maybe a little bit of a reach in the early second. I still like drafting Ryan Williams there in the mid to late, or yeah, kind of middle second range, and even TJ Moore. I think that those guys are honestly more safe than you'd think, and still lots and lots of upside with both Ryan Williams and TJ Moore's profiles.
Yeah, I was going to mention them as guys that are probably being slept on right now. And I know, Ryan Williams. People are going to talk about drops. Drops don't matter, and drops are generally a QB stat, not a wide receiver stat, or just as much of a QB stat as it is a wide receiver stat. So, yeah, you can get out of here with all that. We do not think that Ty Simpson is some amazing QB, and yet, we have Keelan Russell hopefully taking over. Or if Austin Mack beats him out, hopefully it's because he is a talented quarterback, and we'll actually see that. But either way, I think things are going to turn back around. I don't know why we're calling him Ryan Coleman Williams now. That kind of bothers me, but yet here we are. But yeah, being tied for wide receiver 9 with TJ Moore. I think I'm taking both of them over Wesco, over Keys, over Henry. I can make an argument for Marsh, but I think I'm taking both of them over Marsh as well. I know obviously Marsh is going over to Indiana. People are excited about Indiana. What just happened? Josh Hoover is not Fernando Mendoza. Let's just get that straight right now. So like, I can be excited about Nick Marsh. We can be excited about him transferring over to probably a better situation. I don't know that all of a sudden he's going to become wide receiver 1 overall or anything like that because of that transfer. So yeah, I think Ryan Williams, TJ Moore, definitely a couple wide receivers there that are being slept on. But I'll tell you what, after that, especially if we stick with the wide receivers, I mean, you're talking about Dallas Wilson, wide receiver 11, completely unproven player. And you think about some of these players that we have seen do something, get 1,000 yards in college, or even if it was 700 yards or whatever. And we've seen Dallas Wilson play 2 games in college, and he doesn't have a quarterback, and he has a lot of competition there at Florida. That one's a little scary. Latsier Brooks, Andy kind of touched on him, going at let's see, 27.4 overall in the ADP. Just kind of the Malachi Tony light. Like, we have Malachi Tony at home, and it's not very good. I got not the biggest Latsier Brooks fan at all, if you didn't know. It's just, and like, we can say that Casey Concepcion happened, but it happened in year 3. It happened after a transfer. And even then, it's not like we're sitting here going today, going Casey Concepcion's a tier 1 wide receiver in the 2026 class or anything like that. There's very few people out there that are even saying that. So, we can say that these low A guys can get better, but even then, you're still talking about lower ceiling, things like that. There's a reason why I have in Beth, and it's because it generally lowers the ceiling of these players. So yeah, Latsier Brooks, Andrew Marsh, Michigan. We already talked about the Michigan issues and all that kind of stuff. I like the player, but man, that one's just scary. And I guess I'll cut it off there. So, uh, are you happy with those picks in the late second, early to mid third? Are we taking those wide receivers there, or are we hoping for some other players?
Well, I can let Andy maybe elaborate a little bit more, but I am liking the next tier of guys, and maybe we either touch on them today or another time here, because we have obviously some running backs and even a few tight ends to probably discuss today. But I am interested in some of the wide receivers that go after that point for sure. But make no don't mistake that with me saying like Vernell Brown is bad or like Andrew Marsh is bad. And I think you can poke holes in their situations. There are certainly guys further down that I would consider, especially at value, drafting instead. But certainly some solid players there. Like even the freshman Jalen Lott going to Oregon slots in there. I think it's a little bit early for him, to be honest. Ryan Wingo there at Texas. Unfortunately, we anticipate Cam Coleman is going to take a big share of that offense, and that kind of hurts Ryan Wingo's potential development. And say what you want about Lutz here, Brooks. I mean, he is in a pretty good situation there at Alabama, doing some solid things as a true freshman. So again, maybe a smaller player, but could he be like a Jalen Waddle type? I think he could, if he hits that ceiling, that's for sure. So anyways, don't hate that wide receiver tier. I just looking ahead, there are some intriguing guys later though.
Yeah, for Latsier Brooks, his ADOT is actually okay for me. Like it's above 12, which is surprising for how small of a guy he is. Um, the and the market share looked fine enough as well. Like he had over 400 yards. I'm not going to complain about it. Obviously, if you're drafting him in that tier, you're projecting a little bit. There's certainly guys below him that I would have taken before that. But I'm with Aaron. Just looking into the next tier, which we may or may not get to today. There's there's guys that are older. They might not be as fun to take and watch develop and have on your C2C rosters for 2 or 3 years. Um, but these are guys that are safe picks in my opinion, who are going to be day two draft picks, potentially in the NFL draft, like high potential. I'm just looking at like Mario Craver and Jace Brown in the next year, and KJ Duff for that matter. Like those guys are going to be on your NFL team sooner rather than later, and they're also going to be solid college producers this season that you can start in your lineup on your college team. So that's where I'm at with the wide receivers. But again, I'll just reiterate, I'm with both of you guys. Like you could poke holes and nitpick with just about anybody on this list in the first 3 or 4, obviously the first 4 tiers, but even the first 3 tiers. Um, but you can still be excited about all of them generally. Like they all have good things going for them and things that you should feel comfortable drafting them wherever you do end up drafting them, because there's certainly a good chance that all of them are successful.
Yeah, for sure. We haven't even gotten to the running backs yet, but that's what I think when you start getting into the Dallas Wilson, Latsier Brooks, Andrew Marsh tier, I'm probably pivoting to a different position. And that's, the point I really wanted to make, even more so than hating on the players themselves. It's just, I think there's probably better players at other positions that I would take. Um, Now, jumping back into the first round, we have Bo Jackson. I don't know that I would necessarily take him in the first, but like I don't really have like too many issues with him being first or anything like that. People tend to love him more than I do, but he's going to produce at Ohio State. He's going to put up solid numbers, and he's probably going to be a decent running back in the NFL at some point as well. So don't really have a major issue with it. We see getting into the second round at 15.4 in ADP, we see Xavier Crowell, true freshman. We love him as a recruit going to Alabama, but we've also seen a lot of Alabama running backs fail recently. Alabama once again doesn't have a starting quarterback yet, so there's some question marks there. But once again, I don't really mind it. It's when you start getting into these next ones and the tier around that, Dallas Wilson, Latsier Brooks, that kind of thing. Savion hitter out of Michigan, Usman Chroma out of Florida State. I know a lot of people had high hopes for him, but I mean, dude did absolutely nothing in year one, and I can't say that that we can expect things to get drastically better for Florida State going into year two. So I don't know that we're gonna really see too much out of that. Keywan Lacey tends to be probably a little overrated, I think, for his athleticism and things like that, but decent pick. Ahmad Hardy, one player that we've been back and forth on a lot, and then Caleb Hawkins, obviously transferring up, but sticking with the same coach, same QB, same wide receiver, same everything. So there's a lot to like about the Hawkins pick there. But I think especially if like we're pretty big fans of Hardy, Hawkins, and obviously Crowell there, but like Crowell's a little higher. if we're just talking about like Hardy and Hawkins, like I'm taking those guys over Dallas Wilson, Latsier Brooks, Andrew Marsh, like that kind of thing. And and there's probably some other running backs that I might even consider in that range over them as well.
Yeah, the running backs are weird. I'm with you. I mean, they're all we're gonna probably I probably say that about every position, but I think Bo Jackson makes sense as the first one because he's going to essentially have the Ohio State backfield to himself this year and probably next year as well, and that's a high value position. He performed. He had over 1,000 yards rushing last year as a true freshman, essentially, splitting touches with C.J. Donaldson and I guess James Peoples was there too. He didn't really do much, but he was obviously the best running back on the team last year too. So Bo Jackson makes sense as the first as the RB1. I think for me, I would probably lean towards Ahmad Hardy as a safer pick. I know he's a tier down, so obviously I'm not going to draft him higher than what other people are valuing him, but um, you know, not a whole round anyway. I don't get the Savion. I guess I shouldn't say I don't get it. Like Xavier Crowell should have that Alabama backfield all to himself, but it is a true freshman. You are projecting a little bit, but I think that's fine. The Michigan situation does baffle me a little bit because Savion Hyder, if people believe that Savion Hyder is Michigan's best running back, which if you're looking at this ADP, that's what they're going for. Um, then why is Jordan Davison getting drafted essentially two round or not Jordan Davison, Jordan Marshall,
Jordan
excuse me,
Marshall, yeah.
getting drafted 2 rounds later in this next tier? And I've already said my piece about how I feel about Jordan Marshall. I don't think he's explosive at all. But if you're drafting Savion Hyder in the early second round or mid second round, whatever it is, you're expecting him to have a pretty large impact this season, I would imagine. And if that's the case, which I can understand because I don't think Jordan Marshall's very good, why are we still valuing Jordan Marshall as a third round pick? That part is confusing to me. But the rest of the guys in that tier, we everyone should know how we feel about Kwan Lacey. Like he's just another volume guy. He's a better volume guy than um, oh man, his name's already escaping me. The
Emmett Johnson.
Nebraska. He's better than Emmett Johnson. Like the big time run rate's better, everything like that. But still, slow, not quite as explosive. Jaden Baugh's kind of the same story. Isaac Brown's weird for me because he just rips these giant plays all the time, and it's almost like you can't do that every single play, but then he does. So I don't know what's going on there. Um, I think he's a little bit undersized. I don't know if it's sustainable. And obviously, he's not just going to go into the NFL and start ripping 80-yard carries and receptions every single play. So weird one, but I understand the pick there. And Waymon Jordan, he's a JUCO guy. I'm always going to like the JUCO guys, so I'm fine with him there. Even though USC seemed to do just fine without him with King. Oh man, I'm gonna forget his name too.
King
But
Miller.
King Miller,
Yes.
King Miller did great in his stead. So, but Waymon Jordan was great as well. So I don't mind that at all. Um, I think it does drop off a little bit once you get into that third tier of running backs. Um, but yeah, as far as like the top, I guess 10-ish where we're at here in these first two tiers, Jordan Marshall really confuses me, and I do, I just feel like freshmen are. It's difficult for me to take them this early, but I understand the idea and the concept behind it, and I think Xavier Crowell is kind of a safe pick because there isn't really anyone in that Alabama backfield that's too worrisome.
Right. Yeah. Talented 5-star. Back he weighed in at what 221 or 223 pounds here the other day for Alabama. Like he's a built, ready to go, athletic and versatile running back for Alabama. So I do like it. I agree to a degree about Hyder going to Michigan. Like it's just at RB3 prices. overall, like that's too pricey, yes, but he's also a super talented guy. And I understand it's like why are you drafting him so high if you also like Jordan Marshall? It's like some people still believe in Jordan Marshall. I actually don't think he's bad. I think he's a fine back, and I think for C2C purposes, he could get you some value this season. But I see it more of like the Jeremiah Love to Jadarian Price deal, where Jordan Marshall is that Jadarian Price. He is the lesser back when it's all said and done. But he might actually have that upper hand with familiarity, and he's an upperclassman within that Michigan system. We know that there should be some good running back position, whether you think it's the old Michigan system that they've had the last few years, or maybe the system that is being brought in from Utah. Either way, that's going to allow for some good production, I would think. And then Hyder will take over in year two. That's the thought process that I at least see there. I agree that Chroma's too high there at RB4, just too unproven. He's got awesome talent, but that's similar to the Bryce Underwood Michigan pick, just hanging on a little bit too much to that freshman profile, which was strong. It was intriguing, but it's just not really nothing's guaranteed at Florida State role wise, and he was fine as a freshman, but they just brought in like a big time, transfer from Trey Wisner from Texas. Even if you don't think Wisner is a good player, which I don't, that cuts into what Chroma's going to get there. Plus, they already have what's his name, another kind of depth back who was pretty good last year. So I think if you're really targeting running back early, like yes, you could go with the Bo Jackson or the Xavier Crowell at the top. I kind of like that, but then just wait a little bit, get some of the the Ahmad Hardys, the Caleb Hawkins, or maybe even Isaac Brown, because like Andy said, he's a big time playmaker. He's a just super athletic running back who's run into some injury issues so far, but I don't think it's anything that is going to like zap his athleticism going forwards. I think Isaac Brown is just a super dynamic playmaker that you can't really find there at the running back position very often. So he should continue to have a very good career there at Louisville, and hopefully Isaac Brown can get it fully figured out, because he could break the combine type of guy as well. If he's 200 pounds, that becomes super intriguing.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one, and maybe it was probably a good thing that he stayed in Louisville, and for at the very least for C2C purposes, it was a good thing. Who knows if it'll be a good thing for his draft stock and all that kind of stuff. And going back to what you were saying about Jordan Marshall and Hitter there, like we have no idea what would have happened. I know you're not 100% comping them to Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price there, but like we have no idea what would have happened at Notre Dame had Jadarian Price not torn his Achilles. Would he have gotten more of the run over Jeremiah Love in the beginning and things like that? Who really knows? So I guess we're kind of going to see that here in at least in the Michigan version of that, and assuming that Jordan Marshall is healthy and doesn't get hurt and all that, we're going to see how do these teams use the person that's already the player that's already been there. You use the veteran presence and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see, but I tend to lean towards Hitter or Hyder is definitely the better player when it's all said and done. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now we've essentially covered all of the players except for some of the QBs in the third round. But why don't we've been a little negative to start the podcast out. The first 45 minutes of the podcast been a little negative ever since Andy called out Felix Sharp, at the beginning there, it was, so why don't we pick our favorite players, our favorite picks? You're not allowed to use the first round out of the second or third rounds that we've talked about here. Pick your favorite pick. Only one. Don't cheat. You're only given one. You have to pick your favorite pick and explain why. If one of you guys wants to start, you can, or if I can start if you guys need some time, because I'm kind of throwing this on you at last second.
If we're just going in the first two rounds, I think the best value is Julian Sayin. And he's right at the end of the second round. He's a guy that I think could potentially be QB1 next draft class. He's playing on an elite team with elite receivers, elite weapons. We're talking about the RB1 and the wide receiver one on the team, and apparently the wide receiver. Let's see, where do they have Chris Henry 6? So he's got two top six receivers according to C2C ADP, the number one running back, and if you're just talking about draft eligible players this year, outside of like maybe Darian Mensa and potentially CJ Carr, like analytically, he had one of the better seasons last year. So he's going to have a big profile, big stage. People are going to say his name. They're going to be seeing him a lot. He's going to be in the Heisman discussion all year round, probably. Uh, and you're getting him at the end of the second round. I think that's probably the biggest value if you're looking to get one of those QBs early, um, which isn't a bad idea because, like we've talked about, there's a lot of help at wide receiver, and so certainly some friendly players in the running back position in the later rounds as well.
Yeah, I like that. Sand was definitely in the mix for my pick. Aaron, who you got?
Yeah, I had to think a little bit on this, so thanks, Andy, for stepping in. And I will say, in the early third round, being able to draft the potential RB1 here in the future of Devy, Caleb Hawkins, Oklahoma State running back. Just awesome value in my opinion there. And I know it's a projection, right? We're talking a G5 guy. It's like what G5 guys could excel at the NFL level. Oh wait, we just saw one in Ashton Gianti, and Gianti never even transferred up. And he's retaining Caleb Hawkins, that is, he is retaining his offensive coordinator, quarterback, some of the weapons moving to Oklahoma State, but they're also combining some of the resources that Oklahoma State has as a Power Four school too. So I think there's just a lot of good things going on there going forwards at Oklahoma State. Some good coaching goes a long ways towards scheming these guys. And it's not just scheme alone with Caleb Hawkins. He breaks big plays. He's a competent receiving back. He's got enough size. He breaks 200 pounds as a true freshman. I know he's a little bit on the tall side, maybe not quite as tall as like a Jeremiah Love, but he is that type of a back who I think is going to have enough size to him for sure, even if he's a little bit on that tall side. Versatile playmaking back, lots of speed, can break tackles. He can do it all. And I just don't think that Devy drafters are quite giving him the respect that he deserves at RB7, but especially going in the third round in startups. I mean, he's going to break. Well, he has the potential to have another year of league winning fantasy football production like he did last year. Even if he drops off a little bit, he's still giving you high end upside for at least 2 years there, you would think, and then potential high end draft capital. So that to me is the steal of this ADP so far.
I actually love that you chose Hawkins there. I've actually we haven't talked Devy that much in the past couple of months, so we haven't really talked about some of these players. We obviously mentioned Hawkins when he was transferring, but we didn't necessarily say where does this end up, like changing him for your ranks and things like that per se. So it's nice to hear that you're talking about him potentially being like the RB1 overall at some point. Maybe you don't have him there yet, and obviously there's question marks. He did still transfer, and we've said any transfer is always a little risky, and so you have to at least think of it, consider it. But the reason why I say it's nice is because I haven't heard too many people actually mentioning Hawkins as a top Devy back recently, and yet Beth has him there in the top five. And so, I'm very interested to see how does this all play out. And are we crazy for having him that high, or are we going to look like geniuses when it's all said and done? But like I said, I listen to a lot of pods. I listen to a lot of Devy analysis, and I have not heard Caleb Hawkins' name mentioned that much with the top Devy backs. So it's nice to hear him mentioned there. Um, I was gonna mention Ryan Williams, but I already kind of talked about him, so I feel like that's kind of cheating. I really do like that pick. It's 19.4 wide receiver 9. Like that. I really feel like he's gonna be bounce back. The dude's only 18 years old. Like I don't even think he's 19 yet. And like he has, if he needs to, he can stay in college and still be a 20-year old, coming out, or he can come out after this year. He can do so many different things. Yeah, I'm excited about what Ryan Williams is going to do. And I feel like we're counting QB play in Alabama just being having a down year against him a little too much because the way they use him is that down the field wide receiver, and unfortunately, that was just not the way that he was, not the way that Ty Simpson was really throwing the ball last year. So, but I'm not going to use that as my pick. I'm going to go a little deeper. I'm going to say CJ Carr as QB 10. I actually really like that pick. We mentioned all of the risky picks at QB earlier in the first round, second round, and all that. Even getting into the third round, we can actually talk about Jared Curtis and Hussein Longstreet that we haven't even mentioned yet that also went in the third rounds ahead of CJ Carr. Like I just feel like at this point, it's not even that I absolutely love Carr. I mean, he's my QB4 overall, but he's definitely a tier below the top guys. So this is not my stamp of approval as far as like, oh my God, he's a stud no matter what or anything like that. But at QB 10, I really like what Notre Dame's done recently as far as bringing in players and recruiting players, bringing in transfers, a lot of stuff. And so CJ Carr, his second year now, he's the proven starter. There's no question marks in spring camp or anything like that. He's going in. We have consistency. We have a lot of things. So I think that this is going to be a step forward. This is going to be a big year for Carr. He doesn't really have athleticism like we would love to see, so he's not going to go break the bank or do anything like that for you, as far as like fantasy purposes. But he threw for what 3,000 yards and what was it like? I think 26 touchdowns or something like that last year. I mean, there's definitely worse things for your QB to do. And like I said, I think he can take a step forward. So give me that at QB 10. And there's obviously I said I have him as my QB4 overall. And Devy, I think there is a chance that he ends up going to the NFL at some point and at least being a low level starter or something like that.
Yeah, no, I like it. Even though you're kind of cheating talking about two guys, we'll let it fly here. No, I like Ryan Williams. I liked CJ Carr too, value wise. You're right. That's a fair shout out. Yep, for that third round and the quarterbacks.
Yeah, CJ Carr's a guy I might be driving up his ADP in these drafts. I've been in two of them, and I think I took CJ Carr in both of them before pick 30, whatever he goes for at ADP right now. So yeah, I mean, like I said when I was talking about saying, like if you're looking at stats from the last season, these guys between Carr, Sayin, and Mensa, like those are the top three guys for me going into the next year's draft.
Yeah, I think Carr is a little underappreciated for sure. I think we pretty much covered. I guess, like I said, we didn't cover Jared Curtis, true freshman quarterback going to Vandy, and then Hussein Longstreet, backup QB. We're assuming at USC. So there's some question marks there, and those guys are actually being drafted like well ahead of Carr, technically in the third round, according to the ADP. So like I don't think there's any way in hell I'm taking either one of those. And Aaron knows how much I loved Hussein Longstreet, how much I drafted him last year. But you're talking about a guy who's already had to transfer, already, a backup QB at this point. Like we can say that we're excited for things to come and all that kind of stuff, but give me the player in CJ Carr there. I don't know if you guys, I know Aaron's got to get out of here, so I don't know if you guys have anything else to add about the wide receivers there, or I think we touched on all the players, I believe, in the first three rounds at the very least.
Yeah, we'll do tight ends next week.
That's fair. And there was no tight ends in the first three rounds, anyways. The first one in ADP was 59.2. We'll reveal the name next week.
All right, so a little cliffhanger for you guys. That was only the first three rounds, but a lot of names. Some excitement, some question marks. Maybe a lot of question marks. Just a lot of youth. which tends to happen. But it's so much worse in these C2C startups because this isn't Dynasty where you go, oh, I'm gonna grab Devontae Smith, and then 4 years later, AJ Brown gets traded away. This is you draft. You draft, let's see, Usman Chroma, and he never actually sees the field, and you've ruined your team. So it can be very different there in the first few rounds, but we'll get into the deeper rounds. A lot of names still to talk about, some exciting names. Aaron mentioned Darian Mensah, and we have to actually go quite a few rounds before we even get to him, which is wild. So we'll get into some names that we love, some names that we hate in the next few rounds, and all that kind of stuff, either on the next pod or a pod very soon, if it isn't the next one. Andy, you were late, so you got words of wisdom. What you got?
Don't be late, especially when your co-host has a small baby at home who needs all the love and attention. Which I'm sorry to hold you back.
Oh, and don't do that.
Sorry, but that's it. Sorry, guys. Sorry I was late.
It's all good. Don't be late, and don't hit the outro button too soon. We will see. We will be back in your ears as soon as possible. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, checking out our YouTube channel at Gridiron Ratings. And if you guys don't always have an hour to listen to us or whatever it is, we actually started putting the previous week's podcast in article form on my website at dynastyworkshop.com, and those are free to check out. So like last week's pod will now be going out tomorrow, and so on and so forth. So you can check it out in article form, or if you just want to go back and say, hey, I don't remember what they talked about, who they talked about, that kind of stuff, you can always go check it out. So make sure you're checking that out as well. Free to check out at the dynastyworkshop.com. But for now, we're going to go ahead and cash out. See you guys.